So I'm just going to start this off just kind of with the general question that kind of brings all of us together and why we're all here. All of you as artists utilize technology in different ways, whether it's social media to get the word out about your art, whether it's distribution of what you create. So can you just kind of touch upon, as an artist, why is it important for you to utilize technology? And we can start with Ye.Tunde and move down this way.
Sure. I think one of the primary ways, and I'm sure all of us agree, is to be able to get the word out about what you're doing, and also on a deeper level to be able to connect to people who are doing similar things. I think in my practice personally, I think moving away from utilizing social media and technology only as a means to sort of market yourself is something that I'm expanding upon. So trying to ask questions that most people wouldn't see online often. So a project that I recently worked on and finished up is asking 100 questions that are really intentional questions, like, do you believe in life after death? Like, is there a deeper reason why you're using this platform? And it's called I Want to Know You. And it's an Instagram specific project. And I think it goes against what I feel like a lot of people use it for, which is a real reason to utilize it, but specifically for talking about what you're working on. And I think that's important, to not only utilize it as a way to like talk about what you're doing, but also expand upon it and be able to use it in different, interesting ways.
Nah, I concur. I think that's the number one thing, is to get your projects or your ideas out, definitely through social networking. That's what it's called, right? Mm-hmm. Social networking. So that's what you do. And being a part of it, growing up with the changes, and a lot of the young kids are innovative, and it's like things can go viral in a matter of seconds. Like, I didn't know nothing about Bird Box. I didn't have a clue, and it literally just took over my whole life. And I knew when it came out, I was gonna be tuned in. So, those are just examples of just like, you just have to, just utilize it and come up with a plan within yourself. And for me, that's what I did. I came up with a plan within myself and my team and said, look, if we wanna get things out the way we want them out, let's put it out the way we want them to be put out. And that's a platform to do that. So it was very helpful.
Yeah, they all hit the nail on the head. I think in addition to that, just the ability to create without a gatekeeper is kind of a new thing enabled by technology. No one in my family comes from music, and there's always this saying, like, you gotta know somebody in music to get into music. But I won't say technology has opened those gates completely, but it's definitely put a couple back doors in there. And the fact that, like, I don't have to wait until I can get into $1 million studio to get quality equipment. That's a interface, a microphone, and a quiet space, and you can make a hit, that catapults your life. And music was just the first to feel it, but all of these other industries are starting to feel those shifts where it's like, it's not just that, oh, you had a lot of money, so you had the best equipment, so we think your stuff is the best. It's like now you actually have to provide ideas. And now that that barrier is coming down, like the people with the ideas, or usually our people, are finally seeing the shifts in it. And hopefully we can get some of the value out of it as well.
Even with that, going off that, do you think that there's anything right now that makes Black creativity in this space unique from your perspective? So whether it's, like art, whether it's filmmaking, or whether it's music, inventing games, is there a certain, are Black artists doing anything that feels like different or even different from kind of the way that we've operated in the past?
Having a shared experience of being Black, I think, is a really unique thing, right? Like, that's something that crosses, that doesn't exist within borders or within any sort of like socioeconomic status. It has to do with just how you are perceived by the world. And so I think that is a really unique experience, right? Like being able to walk through life knowing that somebody has a similar, obviously not the same, but a similar experience as you. And I think that that is something that's really amazing. And that if it is unique, it has to do with the ability to tap into that in some capacity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I think coming from the inner city, for me, I think that, you know, Richmond taught me a lot about these type of things, but I would say, like, being black is something that you can't escape. So it's like when you create something, it's not about being like the best black thing I can create. It's about being the best thing I can create, and that just comes with that territory because I'm black. And I think that, you know, in creating things with people of different backgrounds for me was, man, like mind-blowing and just dope. Like, I mean, we all come from different walks of life, but we can create something in art that I feel like, you know, whenever we create anything, I mean, all of us want to make something that's thought-provoking, where it's timeless, it can last forever. So, and it's not afraid to fail within doing that. And I think that's what, you know, can get you to that next level.
And I think also the diversity within what it means to be a black creative innately makes it unique, because we have traditionally not had access to these tools. You know, like for some of these tools that other cultures have been using since the 60s and 70s in a very, very major way, a lot of those we're just now like getting into and just now exploring what it means for us. So, you know, like you said, black people come from all shades, all countries, all religions, dialects, languages, all these different things. And the only thing that, not the only thing, but some of the only things that bind them together is this shared experience. So in that case, it's kind of unique from any other culture because by its nature, it's super diverse. And I think we're finally starting to see the more diverse aspects of the perspective rather than this narrow-focused view behind what the gatekeepers saw in our culture. Now it's like, nah, let me tell you what's like actually going on, because there's actually people who invent things and make movies and do social experiments, and you really wouldn't even know that unless you're like deeply in it. It's not something that can be observed from the outside. So I think those stories coming to life are like really unique, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Agreed.
Well, black people have been doing that forever. You know, like we've been doing that forever. Like we've been doing that forever, and having like really unique stories and diving into this like multiple dimensional way of existing. And I mean, I guess I would question like, what do you mean by having access, you know, to certain technologies or certain things? Because I feel like I think of like Sun Ra. I think of like people who have been doing experimental films and music and being eccentric and not being this sort of like monolithic version of blackness for a long time, right? So,
To
yeah.
answer that, I was saying more specifically on like quality levels.
Okay.
I think the content and the ideas and the creatives have always been there.
Yeah.
But it was like, I mean, and this is just for me personally, it felt like there was a span where we had like the golden age of like black film, and then after that, the quality level just went off a cliff where it just turned into like reality TV is the only like, and what I mean by quality, I mean like 4K, ARIA cameras, the things that give credibility abroad, right? Like, and a lot of those things are kind of like coming back now because people like the retro views, but for a very long time, you know, the stamp that made a movie at the movie theater amazing and the dude on YouTube not amazing was not because the ideas were better. It was just around execution. It was like, oh, he had like 3-point lighting. There was like, you know, HDMI input. You know what I mean? Like all these, you know, like Canon lenses. Like the prices have like dropped dramatically. Like you can get a 5D camera that shoots the same quality as a 1990s film that used to cost $50,000, $60,000. And like, so now that's not a barrier. It's like you can't just say, oh, it's low quality. I think it gives a fair chance for the stories and the creatives to express themselves on a real level.
That's funny. It's funny because I finished film school probably with 2012. So I feel like that was the biggest thing. Are you a filmmaker or are you a digital filmmaker? I'm like, what are you talking about? First off, like I'm a filmmaker. Like, well, you're not actually shooting on film. I know I'm shooting on what's accessible and what's what's going to be what I can use. Like now, I think the gatekeeping thing is a real thing. At times, it was before because, all right, you have an idea. Okay, now what makes your idea so separate from this person's idea? And man, how does that idea get manifested? And it's like, well, one, I think that we have to make sure that we are shooting for the quality. Because why are you doing something just to do it, just to be doing it? Like, I want to do it at the highest level possible, whatever it is. Even if it's not going to be good, it was the highest level that I had accessibility to. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you're creating something, that has to be in the back of your mind. Like, do I just want to put something out real quick, or do I want to make sure I put every single effort that I had at that time? And I think that is what gets you to do the research and say, well, what's the difference between 4K and a film, and what's the difference between this, and finding that information out? Because I had to go through that struggle, and then when I went through it, I had to make peace within myself and say, all right, I'm cool with making the Rs and the Reds and these 5Ds, and they do shoot well, but I always tell somebody it's the chef in the kitchen, it's also the shooter. It's not just the camera. Don't rely so much on the camera, rely on yourself. Yeah. And that's what's gonna make it dope.
For sure.
So, yeah, thank you. Please. And that's to all of y'all. Like, there was so many dimensions to that. That was beautiful. Actually, I kind of want to stay on this for a little bit because I actually had this same thought as I was thinking about this subject. So, when I was growing up, I think it was probably at, like, the height of kind of, like, this quote-unquote, trash television that we're talking about. So, like, Flavor of Love, I Love New York, Real Chance of Love. I could go on. Obviously, I watched all of these religiously. But, I mean, to be honest, that, for the lack of a better word, that was a lot of the black television that I was exposed to, that I had just being a kid that was, like, sneaking watching BET and VH1, right? And so I guess my question is, now if you look at it, and I'm like really excited for this generation that we have in the crowd of like high school students to think about what they see on TV or shows like Atlanta, Insecure, Blackish, right? Like there's this whole other gamut that runs from everything to what people would consider like safe to what people would consider raunchy. My real question now is, do you think this is a trend, or is this going to be the future of black creativity, especially as it involves mainstream television? So Diaunte, you can answer that first, kind of being our filmmaker expertise here.
I don't know about all that, but I'll say this. I was very against reality TV. As somebody that started off from 7 years old acting, going to acting schools, learning, putting all that grit and grind, and I'm like, yo, I did all this, and now it's just like, yo, it's a boom, and you don't have to act. And I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Like, so I think I battled that for a while, but then I had to realize something, and I want everybody to take this. It's room for everything, including nonsense. Mm-hmm. Because what's your cup of tea might not be mine, and that's okay. We live in a diverse, innovative world now. It took me a while to understand that growing up. Like, if you want to watch your love and hip hops, hey, I might not, but that's your thing. Mm-hmm. That's what drives you. Mm-hmm. But I'm always gonna ask why, But don't just, disclude the scripted television, because there's a lot of art and a lot of hard work went into that. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of rehearsals. It's a lot of the way things. I'm gonna give an example. The Black Panther craze was amazing. Ryan Coogler and I are great friends, and the thing about it is, a lot of people don't know this, is that when you have a gift in something, I think your gift will make room for you, because he was a football player. A lot of people don't know that. So now he's starting to use his creative mind to write his ideas out. And when you watch on screen, it started with him just in his room writing. Mm-hmm. So does that mean that people not tuned in to Love and Hip Hop whatever it's Miami, or I don't know where they at now, but I'm just saying. That doesn't mean they're not tuned into that. Yeah. But definitely, those same people came out to go see that movie as well, for sure. And everything in between. So definitely, I think that it's all great. It's just about how you consume it and what you wanted to consume. So that's from my perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, we have the discussion in music all the time. It's the same thing. But I think the problem comes when there's no balance. When it's like you're flicking through all these black channels and all these networks, and it's like the same. And not even to knock reality TV, the whole genre, because I think there's some interesting things that have been and can be done there. But I'm saying specifically like put two people who are not going to get along and let's watch what happens. And I think that like it can be entertaining. Like, I've caught myself like pulled into the drama, so I can see the value in it. But I think of it more like candy in that sense. Like, it's like, oh, it was great, it felt good, but then like, how did you feel really afterwards? Like, how do you feel about yourself seeing the people on there? What does it do for your mental psyche and what you see about yourself in the future? And I think a lot of people, just write off as like, oh, it's just entertainment. I think that's the degree, but if you watch anything for 10 hours a week, it has some effect on you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's consuming any media. So I think it's just like a diet, just like any other diet. You have to, pick and choose. And I think to use that metaphor, we used to have food deserts, but now we have platforms that can financially hold that kind of content. Because in their defense, TV has a very strict way it makes money. So the way it makes money is by eyeballs. And if they see the numbers going up, it's like, oh, okay, well, people will binge watch nonsense for 10 hours. So as long as we can put ads between that, it's good. When you have different business models, like YouTube and Netflix and HBO, who I would say have different ways of extracting that revenue, it creates more opportunities. So I don't think it's a fad. I just hope that the creators in this new system will find the leverage and footing that we never quite really got under the old system.
True.
Because I don't want it to be a scenario where it's like, yeah, like, that was super dope, we're gonna give you 2 seasons, and then we're cutting that out.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of that where it's like, build up on the buzz of having like, oh, this huge all black cast and like get everyone super excited. They get the, the social earned media from all of our stuff. And then as soon as that dies down, it's like, well, it wasn't doing exactly what it was doing when it came, so let's just pull the plug and try something else. Whereas I see some other shows get a lot more leniency. So I think it's still about finding some kind of ownership and control. And I don't mean necessarily financial ownership, but at least the leverage to be able to say like, no, like I wanted this film with this character playing in this role, and this is why I wanted it that way, so do this. And as long as people have their production budgets held over their head, that's used as leverage, I don't necessarily know if it can be sustained. I hope so.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I would love for you to address this question too. And if you could also kind of address it from the stance of this huge explosion in interest in black art recently, right? Especially since the whole Kerry James Marshall historic, all of that. So can you kind of touch upon that as well, and kind of from your perspective, how this, really massive surge in interest in black art from a lot of new people, what you think about that and how that impacts you?
Sure. I think going into it in this whole situation with a form of criticality, being critical of what is being consumed, is necessary. I think a lot of what I'm seeing right now in black art is really exciting. I think a lot of people are sifting through a lot of like black trauma almost, and wanting to sift through that in a way that's respectful to all different kinds of black people. The problem but the worry that I have is that it almost seems like, I'm sorry to use this word, I guess, in front of all these high schoolers, but it seems like black trauma porn. Like it seems like a lot of, I worry that a lot of curators and a lot of these historically white institutions are consuming black art in a way that is consistently having it be in relationship to white supremacy and black pain. And I think moments where I find more exciting are these moments where people are taking media, film. I'm thinking of Random Acts of Flyness, which is a really interesting and dynamic and non-linear form of storytelling and filmmaking and video making that I think does not put Black pain and white supremacy at the center and focal point of its narrative. And I think that is often even having to do with reality TV. I mean, why is that so popular, right? I think that has a lot to do with witnessing like Black pain and struggle. And so, again, it's entertaining. I will not lie. I am watching Love and Hip Hop Miami right now, and I'm waiting for the episode to come out. But also, I consume that in a way where I'm saying, okay, cool, this is something that I'm not going to let anybody tell me defines Black people in mass. I'm gonna make sure that when I watch that, I'm like, okay, I'm watching this critically. Like VH1 is making a lot of money off of this series. They've been doing it for a very long time. And I think it's all about having balance. I think it's all about recognizing the power dynamic and structures within these institutions. And I think that applies for film and music and art as well.
No, thank you. I think, so I want to say with this conversation, because what you just said makes such great points, and I think an example of the exact opposite of what we'll call trauma porn, love that term actually, is your exhibition, which is just open at Soma Art. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yes. So your exhibition, Forever a Moment, Black Meditations on Time and Space. Can you get into that? Can you kind of just talk about the title and what that means, and how do Black identities, think about time and space? Yeah,
definitely. So Forever a Moment, Black Meditations on Time and Space is a show of 13 Black artists. It's at SOMARTS, which is in San Francisco, and is part of the curatorial residency where they bring on curators or people who aren't curators, who want to curate into the space. It's a really big space, like 3,000 plus square feet. And the whole premise and decision-making with me and my co-curator, Kevin Day, was to put Black experience and collective Black memory at the forefront of the gallery experience. So a lot of times, like I was saying, Black pain and trauma is often the focal point of a lot of artwork that I'm seeing right now and a lot of curatorial decisions, which is disappointing. And what we decided to do is we decided to make sure that expanding on Blackness and making sure that it's not associated with a monolith, right? Like some sort of like weird Black canon where it's always about like our relationship to whiteness, which is not the case. We're so much more. We're expansive. We've been here for forever. We're like always making. And so really trying to put that resiliency and innovation into the gallery space. And thinking about how like oftentimes when you're going into a gallery, you're just there to consume the work and you're not actually engaging with the work and having to think about it critically, step over it, get into it, like make yourself smaller or make yourself larger within the space. And so thinking about nonlinear time and thinking about how we experience Black art. So we spent a lot of time thinking about the layout, nothing is on almost nothing is on the walls, which is really different. I'm sure with gallery people, this, it's really different. And also making a living, the thing that I really enjoy the most about the Forever a Moment space is we have a living room space in the back that has Kevin and I's family photos, a lot of like books and media and Black zines, which I think a lot of people don't think a lot about of how our experiences are actually archived and how they're living beyond us. And that's what I think is super interesting about music and film and how they intersect, is that it is an archiving tool. It is how we are going to be perceived for future generations longer down the line. And that's why I think cultural production for Black people is so important, and making sure that all the stories are included. As many stories as possible are included in the canon, because I think it does us justice.
Definitely.
Yeah, anyways.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Lance, so I really want to ask you kind of this whole idea of being a game inventor. And why is it important to you that a game inventor comes from the culture? And along with that, can you also tell me some of your future plans for the game and how you plan to utilize technology with what you've already created?
Yeah, for sure. I think for the culture, every title is important. I think the fact that like black game inventor is not a norm is part of the problem, right? Because there's lots of black people and all people love games, so it's just kind of like a natural occurrence. And it goes back to the fact that a lot of our perspectives haven't been shown yet, you know? And there's a mass saturation of everything else to the point where we're forced to consume even our own content and stories through the lens of people who are not necessarily in our culture. And what that leads to is one of two things: either a great story that is skewed through a weird lens, or it's like a terrible story that isn't accurate at all. And I think there are like exceptions to that rule where things have married up nicely, but they're usually the exception. I mean, even with like Fortnite and then putting all the dances in the video game, I honestly don't think that was malicious. I think it was just like there's that far of a disconnect, right, between the person who created that dance and the person who did the mocap and put it in there, that like it wasn't even a thought. And those kinds of presences are the only way those things even get brought up. I think a lot of this is really systematic. And to be fair, for a lot of the game companies, it's a new weird thing. Like Kevin Durant is a 6'7", person who plays from all over the field. Like, I'm sure for coaches originally, it was like, put him as a center. A lot of times these people just don't know how to engage with, don't know there are black game inventors who want to have their things out there. So I think that's part of why our mission at Cool Black Games is really, really important. And it's not necessarily games just for black people, but just created from our perspective and in the hip hop culture. Because hip hop culture is black culture, and it's the biggest culture in the world right now. And we're just now getting the statistics to back it up with streaming numbers and all that stuff, but we've known for a while now. That means that someone is going to fulfill that demand. And historically, it hasn't been us. So I really want to make sure that we at least have our hat in the ring to be considered for these opportunities and grants and collaborations. And for the meme game specifically, going to that point, it's about scale. That's our next point. We have a really niche, loyal following who loves our game. We have consistent sales. We found product market fit. So now it's about how do we scale it as humanly possible. Scale it as fast as humanly possible. And before we were using, it's a traditional card game, but now we're going to be bringing those experiences to the internet and to your handheld phone and to live experiences through technology. I wish I could talk about specifics on how that's going to happen, but we have some pretty cool rollouts coming out that we'll make sure to keep everybody in on.
Yeah, thank you. So continuing, Diaunte, can you touch upon some of the voids in media that you're fulfilling, especially with your role over at Beast Mode Productions?
Yeah, we're attacking everything. That's what we're doing. We're not. It's nothing we can't do. Nobody. The word no is like a figment of imagination at Beast Mode Productions. You have somebody that's like, when I came to Marshawn Lynch to say, look, let's create a production company. It wasn't, let's figure out the particulars and see how we're gonna do this. It was, all right, the next day, we got a production company. and I think that's important, is to press play on those ideas. I felt like, it was the best thing to represent our film. Our first film coming from 100 Blocks was made for and by the people. We didn't have any name actors. We broke the lines that we were saying earlier about like, well, you gotta have 4 names attached to a project for that project to sell. So when they're looking at things, they're looking at like, okay, well, wait a minute. So you make this movie, who do you have in it? I got Robert Jordan. Who is that? He's a wonderful actor. I mean, I casted him. It's funny, man. It's so funny. It's a true story. I was in film school, and I used to watch Entourage all the time. And I had actually said, like, oh, this is dope. They're showing you how the actors' really lifestyle is. And I said, well, what would if I did that about hip hop, especially in the Bay Area with the independent scene of music? And I said, I'm a cast Mo Green. He's a great actor. I'm a cast Daveed Diggs, who now blew up.
Yeah.
But he wasn't that when I casted him. I just knew he was loud. He had long, big hair, and I knew he was the man. So as we filmed this project, I said, this is dope. So as time went by, that was almost 7, 8 years ago. Time went by. That was my calling card to get in these rooms, that I'm looking for the acceptance to say, hey, I can do this. And look how it looks, it's quality. Everything's done, the editing is done right. And it still was like, oh yeah, this is cool, but we need more. So I was like, man, what is the disconnect between my idea and what you guys want? But I'm looking at the actors is blowing up from it. I'm like, okay. But then I started to see, with 100 Blocks, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do everything opposite of what the status quo was. And we're gonna make this movie black and white, even though we have the capabilities to make it in color. Yeah, we're gonna have all the cast members be local. Yeah, I did hold them to a high standard. I did make them do a lot of rehearsals. I did make them do a lot of things. But I was challenging who they already were. I was just like, you can do this. And when they started to understand that, and we made this film, for us to win a grand jury award in Oakland was big, because I remember Jay-Z saying, if you can make it in the Bay Area with any type of art, music, or whatever, oh, you're good everywhere else. And I understand that, because they're the first ones who are gonna say, this is whack.
Yeah.
This is whack. So that's what we thrived on. We don't have any limitations. We did do in a variety space, so we did have to touch into the reality role, but we did it in our way. We wanted you to show you our reality of what we would do hanging out. We didn't want to put it on this type of standard. It's like, we got kids around us on a day-to-day basis that are always looking for the next thing that's going to help them be better. So that's why I'm like, we don't have no rules. We don't have no rules. We just want to. The only rule we have is to see it through and be creative and be the best you can be in that project. And we're good with that.
Yeah. So all of you have really touched on this idea of challenging the status quo and like breaking the mold of what's expected. Can you touch upon where that comes from for you, and kind of like where that attitude comes? Is it someone in your family who inspired you to be like that? Is there an artist that that you just look up to that really made you say like, oh, okay, yeah, like F the system, I'm doing what I want to do? So yeah, can we start over here?
I think I'm gonna answer this. I think people.
Is it in you?
It just happens. I'm sure. We all might have people that really inspire us and push us, and I could list the many people who've like encouraged me to do more and push myself. But I think it just has to. It's a decision you make. It's a decision you make that you want to be critical and self-aware of what you can do and push yourself to make things that are better, or to help somebody else make things, or be creative, or find their voice, or be able to express in a way that they haven't been able to before. And I think it comes, for me personally, it comes from a desire to be able to free myself from any sort of societal pressure or obligations, and being able, and I think that that's a form of liberation, right? Especially for Black people. So being able to instill that within myself, being able to like see that within other people, and being able to support anybody I can to free themselves from that and liberate themselves in that way, I think is powerful, and that's the driving force behind any of that. Yeah.
I mean, to your point, like a status quo is in itself inauthentic, because people are not one thing, right? So whenever you're trying to like, especially something as multifaceted as art, where like the core of it is that you are expressing some unique perspective. For me, I had a really revelation moment when I was in college. I made a song that was like really popular and really trash. Like, in my opinion, like, it was a song that like I would have lots of people singing back, and then I would feel like a terrible person at the end of it, you know? And I think that kind of feeling, a lot of artists, not just in music, just art in general, will like tuck it for the praise, but then that feeling you get about yourself when you get that praise is not the same as when you do something you know is authentic and creative and varied, and then someone loves it, because then you feel like, oh, this person really like, it's almost like they love me, you know what I mean? Or like, but if it's something that's like a bastardization of something that came out of you, you're just like, oh, but that's, you like that thing, but that's not me, like, so it creates this weird dynamic. And for me, I'll say, I had a specifically with Blue, right? At the time, Blue had been a XXL freshman, which was like a really big deal back then. You know what I mean? Like that was like the list. You're on that list, you're like, okay, you're in hip hop. Like that was your cosign. So I had a lot of respect for him, and I just did poetry, but I had never really expressed it out like that because that wasn't what people looked to me for, because, you know, I work with computers and all that stuff. And when I rapped for him, he was like, yo, this is like really dope. Like, this is really dope. And he sent me a beat the next day. I'm still in high school at this time. You know what I mean? And to me, and he still is in my eyes, like one of the best lyricists that I've ever done it.
Facts.
And just getting that, like, it probably didn't even mean anything to him. I hadn't even like kept close conversation to him, but that moment when he just like sent me that beat, and it was like, this dude in XXL sent me a beat for my raps, like, I got skills. And just that little amount was like, okay, no matter what anyone else says, man, Blue sent me a beat, so like, y'all can't tell me nothing, you know, like, and having those little things are super important to keeping that authenticity when it gets tough. Those little moments you can like grab on that let you know who you are at the purest times, before the money's involved, before the opinions and everyone else gets their hands into it, how you really feel about it. So.
I agree with a lot that you said. I mean, honestly, I don't believe in realistic. That's like my driving force. I'm an underdog. I've always been an underdog. I'm still, people, it's crazy. Still, people are like, oh, you do this, you do that. I'm like, I don't see myself at that at times, being honest and transparent. But that comes from my background. I grew up in the inner city. I grew up in the hood. I watched people leave this world in front of me. So for me, time and realistic is like two things that are been poured into me and a lot of individuals. There's no such thing as realistic in my mind, because all you're saying is that, yeah, I have an idea, but somebody told me along the way I can't do that. And I feel like if you listen to that, you would never get to your full potential. You will never, I don't care who you are, where you're from, you don't have to go with the fad. Oh, they're making this type right now, so you have to do that, because then you can find yourself in a box. So realistic, always have the plan A, never the plan B. Everything you do in the plan A, if it is a plan B, it'll take you there on its own. You don't have to be like, well, if this doesn't work out, you're starting to put these weird things in your head, and you start to question everything. And as the young people I see in this room, it's no limit with this. It's no limit. You're limitless. You have a superpower inside of you that is driving you. The fact that you woke up today, you're good. You got the purpose in you. And you can't let anyone or anybody, because who's to tell you that that idea was never going to transpire? But I will say this to add to your point. You said, make sure, you said people love me. You start to feel like people love me. If you make something because you like what somebody else is doing, you're becoming a copy. And guess what? They're going to want that from you every time if it takes off. And if that's not authentically who you are, you're literally making a copy. And guess what? I know several friends of mine that does music and everything, and they're stuck in that box. They're like, they keep wanting this from me, but I'm really trying to do this. No, I don't want that from you, because that one thing that was fake popped off. Now you got to stick to that. And now you're starting to find yourself going through depression, even when the money comes. I don't chase money, I chase the passion. The money is just going to be the principle. It'll be there. But I don't chase not $1. I'm going to chase the fact that I'm investing in people, the people that I see right here that are innovators, the people I see out here that's innovators. I'm chasing that. Like what's about you that makes it differently? And I'm cool with that. And if it fails, so what? Keep going.
The way that you wanted to fail.
It took me 7 years to make my first movie with no money. I did it with no funding, none. I just communicated. I showed people my passion and what I wanted, and we made it. And it's out. You can go and buy that. It's tangible. So guess what? Nobody can't tell me anything, and nobody should tell you guys anything as well.
Just because you've just recently talked about a Diaunte, and I do want to kind of know kind of specifically because, well, I come from like similar backgrounds from the East Coast, but I would love to know how you feel coming from where you come from in Richmond, how you feel that that's really shaped the way that you make decisions as a filmmaker, but also as an entrepreneur in your own way as well.
Be willing to accept the things that I cannot change is the biggest thing, because it's hard. It's a lot of people that deals with daily struggles. I think I touched every facet of it, from growing up, my mom being a functional drug addict, to my stepdad being one of the biggest drug dealers, and me knowing what I didn't want for my life. That was definitely something I'm like, but I felt normal. So when you talked about trauma, that's all you see, but you don't even know it's trauma because it feels normal to you. And then you start to normalize your situation, which a lot of people that I grew up with, sometimes you get stuck. So I think that those traumas, I was the reason why I was the human TV guy. What's this? Oh man, I'm watching Showtime and HBO as a kid, not cartoons always. So I'm looking at the Joy Luck Club at 7 years old. I don't even know what I'm looking at, but I know I'm intrigued on this lifestyle. So I think for me as a filmmaker, it was already embedded in that purpose because of that trauma, because I wanted to escape. And then when I dealt with it on my own and dealt with that trauma and realized that I was going through that and admitted that, I realized like, oh man, these stories that can get out, like I said earlier, it's limitless. So it's like, I think that's what shaped me is my neighborhood. I wouldn't be nowhere without Richmond, because if I grew up anywhere else, I wouldn't have this perspective on life that can help the next person up. And my goal is to help the next person up, period.
Yeah. So it's this whole process has been like really dope for me, because for all of you in different ways, at different parts of my life, I've like been deeply like obsessed with the content that you've created without necessarily like personally knowing y'all, right? For me, the earliest one is Lance. So I was a really big part of like hip hop message boards and forums when they were like pretty much like what were the pre-social media, especially for artists. And Lance, your work and the type of stuff that you were creating just stood out so much. And I mean, it stood out amongst great rappers. I mean, people like Drake were a part of these forums that we were a part of and were active members and sharing music. And so with that, I really just want to ask you to kind of touch upon kind of like the projects that you do, just like being a digital strategist, and how you being like so involved in hip hop, but also at the same time being a digital native, have kind of got you to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my start in digital strategy, which I'm pretty sure was just a made-up phrase when I first started using it, was, I had no intentions to be a digital strategist. I was trying to pitch my music to a dude named Brian Calhoun, who at the time was the chief operating officer at Good Music. So,
which is Kanye's record label.
Which Kanye's record label. So I was like, oh, this dude works with Kanye, he's gonna sign me. So he came to our school at Howard, and I gave him a CD. He's like, for those who don't know, a chief operating officer does not sign people. In fact, that's probably as far away from that as they could possibly get. But I didn't know that. So I gave him a CD and he actually listened to it. He's like, oh, this is like really dope. Like, who did your design work? I was like, oh, I did that. And like, who did your website? Like, I did it. He was like, well, I'm not gonna sign you, but you know, you wanna come work on this project and you wanna get a check? And I was like, yeah. The first project that I like kind of piggybacked on, or one of the first one was like Drake's release of Best I Ever Had. And it went like, which is, it's not even news now, but like it went straight to iTunes while his negotiations were still going on. And I saw like the power from the other side that like, oh, these digital strategies and ideas that I've been using to build my own career up without having any connections, I saw really early on that these are things that everyone was gonna have to do. And at the time, he was signed to a management company called Hip Hop since 1978, which was Ye's management company. I think Jeezy at one time. I mean, they've managed some of everybody. And because there was no real digital footprint, it was like me and that one dude who I mentioned before who gave me a job, that was it. So lots of responsibilities you wouldn't really hand over to a college student just kind of fell in my lap because it was like, oh, just give it to them. Because like it was kind of like an afterthought, you know, like you were trying to convince these millionaires who were super famous, like, yeah, you need a blog. And they're like, blog? I'm about to get a Maybach. Like, what are you? Like, so as that shift happened and people started to realize, like, oh, everything's going digital, like iTunes and like all these things, then those departments started to like, yeah, we need digital. Well, who's the digital strategist? And like literally, you know, it was just like, well, he's the guy we know. And that snowballed to the effect, you know, that, you know, I worked with Common and, you know, Lil Wayne, G-Eazy, T.I., The Roots, Jill Scott. I mean, Fantastic Negrito, who's local here. And for me, that kind of opened my eyes to like the effects of digital abroad in everything. You know, it's like, it's not just this thing that I can spam people my music with. It's something that nonprofits and companies and all these other organizations could use too. So, yeah, it's, I forget what your original question was.
No, that was it. That was it. How'd you get here? How'd you do it?
Yeah.
Ye.Tunde, so along with being an amazing visual artist who does everything from like photography to like painting to video, you're also a experimental musician who also scores a lot of their own videos. So can you kind of talk to me about your process there and kind of like how all of that comes together? Like how do you do it and how does it happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I think most of the time it comes from my desire, like I was talking about before, to archive all these stories. I feel like everybody's process is really important, and how we got to where we're at is really important to talk about. And so a lot of where I started is talking to my family, talking to my mom and my grandma, who are both here now, but we're from South Carolina, we're Gullah Geechee people. And so there's a lot about language and about oral history that's passed down, and I don't want to miss it. I don't want to lose it. And so a lot of the places I start is by like interviewing just pressing record and just like having a conversation. And so I don't know, it feels kind of important as far as like tying it in with what everybody else is saying about like understanding where you come from and being really true to your authentic story and making sure that like you understand where you come from and what you can bring to the table, and also like what you don't want to be, right? I feel like just listening to them talk, especially with talking about relationships and talking about having to like move and being displaced, and it feels like stuff and lessons that I need to make sure I remember. So I guess where I start is just wanting to make sure I remember all these things and making sure that I can pass that down in some way. But yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So I want to get into a portion where, especially before we kick it over to Q&A, I would like to just kind of know about some stuff that y'all like. And so I have kind of specific questions for each of you. So for you, Lance, I want to know, what's your favorite meme right now?
Oh, my favorite meme.
Yeah. Or some of them. If you can't pick one, 2 or 3 is fine. Yeah.
So one that I find myself going to a lot is the Waka Flocka one, where he like looks over and he like looks back again. because there's like so many scenarios that are happening, right? Especially on the internet for Black people and Black culture, where it's just like you can't even get angry anymore. It's just like you just kind of give it a side eye. So I find myself going to that one like a lot. And me knowing who Waka Flocka is, like he's kind of perceived as someone who doesn't have a lot of emotion, or people think he's a trapper and like all these things. So to see that nuance of emotion and response and understanding too, like people think Waka's dumb, but he's not at all. And a lot of people from the South have that thing where it's like you hear the accent and then you're like, oh, they must not be intelligent. And I don't know, that meme summates a lot in just that I can like see I get what's going on. Like, what do you like, that I see the plot. That's the phrase I'm thinking of in my head. So that's my favorite meme right now.
I like that. Diaunte, what are some of your favorite film projects that are going on right now? And if there's none right now that you particularly love, then I'm just interested to also just know what films you really love that just like inspired you to do this.
Films that inspired me. Number one film that inspired me was Seven was my favorite film because of I didn't know who the director was. I found out it was David Fincher, but I'm saying like it was just like everything about what he was doing in that. Denzel Washington was supposed to play Brad Pitt role. He turned it down. Shouldn't have, but I wish he would have. But he turned it down. But it was still a phenomenal film. That inspired me the way I could think outside the box. And then it was a movie called, I was in film school, Sweetback's Badass Song.
Yes.
And I was like, first off, in film school, you got to watch, in film appreciation, movies that you wouldn't normally watch. And I was like, what did I just watch? This is crazy. My film directing teacher, he was like, look, we're gonna watch it, and I want you to watch another movie, which was just badass. And I was just like, it showed how he made Sweetbacks. And that right there, I appreciate that movie so much, and that'd be one of my top movies because of how it was made, because he had nothing. He had nothing. So that's when the guy introduced, like, oh, you just gotta be creative and resourceful. We had a scene in our movie, the producers came to me and said, look, I love this idea that you have, but check this out. That scene cost $90,000. And I was like, so what am I supposed to do? They said, you gotta get $90,000 or you gotta be creative to do it. And I was just like, I think it was a home invasion scene or something like that. And they had all this blood coming all this over. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I got you. I sat home in my house and I was watching that again whenever I get stuck. And I said, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. You know what? I'm gonna make the audience work. I'm just gonna film the outside of the house and have everybody act inside, and we just gonna imagine what was going on. And then they was like, in the movie theater, they were like, man, that part was so good. I'm like, man, I got no money. I was able to be creative. So those were the movies that inspired me, and I think that the film projects that I have going on now are a lot. I have 5 projects right now that we are currently working with. We're doing 2 projects with Mark Wahlberg that is unscripted, and then we're actually doing a TV show based on, I don't know if I can say it, but I can say this. It has something to do with Marshawn, but it's like gonna be scripted.
Wow.
And then I think, and we have a couple of feature films that we're gonna probably do in Atlanta and in Oakland.
Nice.
Yeah.
So many secret projects out there. Ye.Tunde, I'm gonna make this a little bit harder for you, just because you're such, and for y'all, anyone who's here, if y'all have the chance to like come up to the city in San Francisco, you really should see this show that Ye.Tunde's curated, and also just, Ye.Tunde's, one of the most prolific and intelligent artists that are a part of the active San Francisco art scene today. I don't think that there's anyone who's a part of it or knows anything about it who isn't super familiar with Ye.Tunde's work as a curator or an artist, seriously. And so with that, Can you talk about some of the artists who are active in the scene in San Francisco who you think people should be, doing their Googles on, paying attention to, following, et cetera? Yeah.
Yeah. I think Summer Mason, we're going to talk about Summer Mason, just premiered a video at the show called Velvet Rain, which is, I think, the beginning of a project, but maybe a complete project. Black Zombies, which when they told me, I was just like, I don't know, sis. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna put this in the show, but let me see it. But it's actually really brilliant. And okay, so Summer Mason. I wrote this down and I totally forgot everybody's name. Wait a minute. Summer Mason. I think that Layla. Layla's making interesting work right now. Layla Wafer.
Yes. Yeah.
I think Christian Johnson. I'm interested. Christian Johnson was formerly part of the Black Aesthetic, which is a all-Black film collective. And I think it's a book that's coming out called My Skin is Black Upon Me, but he's also doing a film associated with it that's going to be screening, actually, as part of the show on March 7th. So I'm excited about that. He's a really smart film curator and critic, and I'm really excited to see his work actually be manifested into something.
Awesome.
And then Musée, I want to talk about Musée Sese. He's not a filmmaker, but a fantastic and prolific painter, talking about how space and understandings of memory and home change. But those are just a few on the top of my head.
Yeah, definitely. So all those people are super important.
Yeah.
You've just gotten the key to the next poppin' artist for the next 4 years. So I would like to turn to audience questions if you all have any.
As a filmmaker and you're doing everything independently, for me, for my last short film, everything that could have went wrong. Yet I still made the best of it. And sometimes I look at it and people are like, yo, this looks good. But all I see is, it was supposed to be like this, So what do you do when, how do you function when things don't work out, like how you were saying that you didn't have the money, so you just shot it from inside. It turned out brilliant, turned out better than you would have thought. What do you do when things like that happen?
Well, first off, on every single set I've been on, it's always a fire. Wow. That's why I put that in my head. It's going to be a fire. And you got to put it out. You have to put it in your mind. Not saying you're assuming that something's going to go wrong. You're trying to, but you just got to know that's filmmaking. So what I would do is, more so than not, is I go back to what I can control. If I'm prepared like I'm supposed to be, and whether if it's financial or just mentally, am I prepared to know what I want? And have options in your head how these things can go, and always feel like as a director, you're a problem solver. You're a problem solver. If you gotta take 5 minutes, look y'all, hold on, wait a minute, I need 5 minutes. Just a process. And get back in the fire. And what will be, will be. And you have to be cool with that. And you're always never gonna be satisfied with your work. No creator is, on any level, not just film. You're like, oh, I could've did this, I could've did that. Yeah. Don't kill yourself about it. Just really just say, move on, next project.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So for Lance, my question is, as a digital strategist, what are a couple tips that you could give to someone to expand their art? I feel like there's a lot of good art out there, but it just doesn't necessarily have the reach. So how would you say are a couple ways that you can kind of expand someone's piece of art?
Okay. I'm gonna throw a question back at you just because I don't want to give a vague answer that's not even actionable. Like, what kind of art?
Let's say you're I would love to ask all of you questions, but let's say as you're a short filmmaker and you are trying to utilize the digital platforms to get further out there.
Yeah, I mean, and my point of asking that question is also just kind of to show my process about it. Every piece of content, right, not even if it's good, every piece of content, period, has an audience, right? And that audience is a certain person at a certain time, right? So whenever you're thinking about your projects, you think about like, okay, who are the people who want to see short films? Where are they at in their lives when they're watching them? You know, short films don't have the same homes as like a feature film or even as like a periodic series. I mean, it's kind of a easy lob, but I would look for, you know, programs like apps that are created by our culture that feed specifically to those things and find out how you can work with other creatives and curators in that space. I think collaboration is the easiest way and most it can be the most organic way to make it happen. Because if you find someone that you really love their art in that space, you're probably not the only one, right? Which means that they have an audience as well. And not to underestimate what they call the mere exposure effect, which is like if someone sees something 4 times, they'll start to appreciate it even if they don't like it, right? That goes for music, content, and when you have a circle that's close to you, or people that like, oh, I really like his art, so I want to go make something with him. Like, I got a lot of people in Oakland, he got a lot of people in Oakland. And when those two networks start to overlap, that's when you really see the magic that fires it off in all these other places. That or just have like a really huge budget and then just buy Facebook ads or Google ads.
Facts.
But yeah, like that would be my advice. And then, but to that point also, don't be afraid of advertising. Like advertising is really, it's kind of daunting for a lot of people. And up until recently, it's actually been kind of difficult. But, you know, even not to shamelessly plug, like Google's ad platform has gotten tremendously easier over like the last couple of years. And that's across the board for all the platforms. So, you know, like you take $20 to the bar, if you're working on something cool, put $20 into it and say, I think these kind of people like my stuff, let me just put it in front of them. And the beauty of that is it's real people who will give you real feedback real fast. And, you know, $20 could give you 5,000 impressions to really find out. And I think that's the step that a lot of people miss is they're waiting for the big, huge boom release. And, you know, and I'm guilty of it as well. Like you start to overthink like, oh, I gotta get this person here, I gotta get this person here, and then we're gonna roll out this, and then these people are gonna cover it. And those things are good, but a lot of times that just causes the paradox of choice. And you're like, well, my art's good, but I don't know how I'm gonna get it out there, so I'm just gonna hold on to it. And I think the first thing is just getting it out there. Like she mentioned Summer. Summer is someone that I connected with a long time ago just because I thought she was making dope art in college. And like now she's on like, you know, doing openings with her. So it's like, man, those kind of little connections might not be anything right now, but as you start to connect with more super talented people, all those people find footing in other places. You know, we connected on a message board like almost 10 years ago now. Yeah. You know what I mean? And now we're at Google, you know what I mean? So just don't underestimate the people who are around you and use those networks because 500 people is actually a lot of people, you know what I mean?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Thanks all of you. It was really inspirational. As an educator, could you make the stay in school story sound cool? Because I'm wondering could you talk about the difference between what you learn from going to school and what you can teach yourself online these days? Because I think we're in this transition point where a lot of people still have the hood story of like, I didn't go to school, I applied my hood knowledge, and now I'm up here. And then you have a lot of people saying that, oh, we'll learn it all on the web. I don't need a mentor, I don't need teachers. So if you could just speak to the role of education and how that really played out for you guys, I'd appreciate it.
Y'all want to go? We want to go?
I'll jump in first real quick, and then you can let that simmer. I'll just say really quickly, so I come from educators. My mother's a teacher, my sister's a teacher, and I still taught myself a lot, but I think the building blocks to know how to even properly decipher what knowledge is right for you comes from the basis of having some sort of education, right? So I think, and I'll even stand here and say, I'm totally about independence, right? Like I think you should have a job, and I don't even believe in a side hustle. Like I think you should have a business, right? Like I think you should really have duality at all times, but Even being able to do that properly comes from the basis of having a good education. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, what race you are, what gender you are, everyone is uplifted by some sort of formal education. So I think it's a part of being a human, and it's necessary just on a base level. And this is why we have fake news, because people don't have a respect for any sort of institution, right? So it's a balance, right? As we've all talked about in different ways up here. So,
Yeah, I was one that was like, you know what, I don't need no degree, I don't need no school. After high school, of course, but I was like, nah, I'm cool. I'm gonna do it on my own. I'm gonna find a different way. What he just said, like, oh yeah, it's another way you can do it, and it is ways you can do it. But I find myself saying that after when I realized how many things were essential if I would have went to school on certain things. Of course, I went to film school directly, but if I would have went to like a university of some sort, or I know I'd be one that would have been fast tracked way faster. Two, I felt like that's what I really feel. And I feel like, first off, you learn so much socially being at a school.
Yeah.
Like, I go on college campuses now and I'll be like, man, why didn't I go to school? Like, what was I thinking? But you don't know it till it's too late. And it's like, well, it's never too late to go to school. But I'm saying, like, for what I'm trying to do, I was like, man, look, I'm already 2 kids in. And then, like, looking at my oldest, my 13-year-old, I look at him and he's talking about college applications and stuff now, and I'm looking like, this dude is nowhere near from me, but he's his mom. But so I'm like, I'm not thinking that far, but I was like, I see the benefits, and I'm going to college campuses with him for sports, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's get these 3.5 and above. You know what? You do this, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go to that. My friend's going to USC film school. I'm like, nobody told me. So don't let the fear, I think a lot of it was me, and I started putting that bad fear, like, oh, I don't need school, but I really needed it school. So don't, that's a psych yourself out. But yeah, I definitely think school is very important, period.
Yeah, and to add on to that, this might not be very popular, but I think there is definitely a shift towards people, not having as much faith in the institutions of college and how much value they give. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in school debt a lot of people go through just to find out they don't know what they want to do. And that's like a very dangerous, very real thing that I don't think gets beat into kids' head when they're 17, 18 years old, taking on loans that will affect their life probably forever. According to the student loan debt problem. But I think education and the institution of school are completely separate. Like, I think school is really good for cheat codes, meaning that, like, you're gonna be next to a lot of other people who are doing amazing stuff just by nature of it being a school and a college. Like, Howard is notorious for, like, people don't necessarily always appreciate the academics of it, but our track record and people who've stepped through those halls is unmatched. Like, Diddy dropped out, you know what I mean? Like, and those are like the things that are intangibles that are not actually attached to the book. Because to be real, like, a lot of these books become outdated in a year. A lot of the teachers get in situations where they're teaching so they're not out in the field and they lose things. But as long as you go into it with the impression that this is about my self-development and I'm gonna go get the things that I need out of it, rather than like, I'm just gonna check off these boxes, take this paper and wait for a check from some employer. I think if you take that second route, you're gonna be sorely mistaken, especially in 4 or 5 years from now. You might be mistaken this year. So I would say, like, having a value for education and being around intelligent, smart people. You spoke about mentors. Those, you don't have to go to college to get those things. I think if you have a really affordable option to do it, it's an easy way to get those cheat codes, to get those plugs, to get, like, I met Brian Calhoun because he came for a panel at my school, right? He wasn't gonna come to my house and do a panel, right? And I wouldn't have found out about it unless I was in that network. And even now, especially 4 or 5 years after you get out of it, you really start to see, like, oh, I need a job like at this place. This dude who I had that one class with in economics, he's now the hiring manager for that position. And, like, he's not even gonna look at my resume when I come in. You know what I mean? And seeing that in person, that like I've been out of college for, I'm not gonna date myself, but some years now, and I haven't had my actual transcript pulled ever. Like, and I've held positions at some of the highest companies with the biggest artists, but what really stands out is your ability to execute and your reputation and your connections. And your ability to execute, school can kind of help with, but your reputation and your connections, if you go to Stanford, you're plugged, like, period. Like, you can't help but be plugged because of the filtering mechanism. So I would say don't think too much about, like, man, I'm reading this book, I know this trigonometry isn't gonna mean anything to me in 6 months. Because you might be right, but it's not about that. It's about the kid next to you who's getting an A in trigonometry and knows that like the back of his hand. Like, he's gonna be changing the world. So you wanna be next to him, you wanna build those, and you wanna get some of that energy off of those people. So yeah, that was long-winded, but
No, that's great.
How you guys doing? My name is Bran Shea. I'm one of the chaperones from McClymonds High School, and I just love what you guys were talking about. This is like such an awesome segue because I have students, and some of them are a little shy. And Diaunte, especially you, we're familiar with Marshawn Lynch. You know Mac House in football. He's been up there a couple of times. But even for Ye.Tunde and Lance, I hope I said that right, do you guys have a process for mentorship? Do you have a process for internship or externships? How could the students get access to you? And even if you don't do that, how could they get in contact with you online, or what's your social media handle, just so that they can follow you and get a little bit more familiar with who you are and what you're doing? Now, we're super, super interested though in the Beast Mode Connect because we have a whole multimedia Best Buy Teen Tech Center, and I'm telling you, some of the students are already making their own films. Some of them have already won awards, and these are kids who, I love the conversation we were having about education, because I think as Ye.Tunde was talking about, like, you know, trauma as it relates to white supremacy or the oppression or systemic oppression, education in itself is embedded in that. So as we start to talk about learning and like different learning modalities, it's not gonna work for kids who are coming from vulnerable communities. So if we as artists or the black artists who are making the next wave are not keeping that in mind, a lot of kids are marginalized. They won't ever get to where you are just because of where they were born, period. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Man, that was a lot.
Yeah, no.
The question, how do they get in contact with you? How could, like, the internship, we looking for the connect. What's the connect for them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The plug, that's the real question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, if anybody is out there and wants to like learn about being in arts, wants to learn about being an artist, like my door is always open. I have a lot of connects through MoAD, Museum of the African Diaspora, San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, Yerba Buena Center for the Arts. I've worked there. If anybody, if you want to be a curator, which is like showing people's artwork, if you like making experimental videos, I can help with that. I'm also getting my master's at Mills College, so if you are interested in Mills College, which is a really good school, and they have different kind of programs. A lot of people I know have gone there. Anytime, I can, if anybody wants to come up to me, I will share my number, my email. I also work at a organization called Counterpulse, which is an organization that does a lot of dance and experimental dance. So if you're a dancer, if you need studio space, rehearsal space, let me know. Let me know. Anything you need.
Same way for me. That's what it's all about. That's why I'm here right now, right? So it's like, it is a tricky business, you know. I know I get busy at times, but I don't ever want to get too busy to the point where we can't have a conversation to get you where you need to go. I'm very accessible, whether if it's, and you guys after the thing, you can get all my information as far as what we got going on. And we're gonna have a lot of, as far as the Beast Mode Productions is an umbrella extension of a lot of other things. We have Family First. Family is the foundation, and a lot of kids wants to be. We did Beast of a Business, and you have an idea for a business, and you could apply it and help get through Shopify, get your business off the ground as a high school person. Architecture, we have. It's not just film. It's everything, and the foundation. We have a West Oakland Youth Center. We have classes throughout the summer. everything. So it's a lot of things that we're actively in the community day to day. We're not just too far off doing these great projects. It started with just being right here on a day-to-day basis, being on the ground. So, yeah, and to even go on to another step further is that just make sure you guys are literally, you might have heard it, you're the future. Word. And I think that if you hear that, you like, oh, okay, that's cool, I'm the future. Like, no, like, you're the future. If you got, I don't know, it's somebody in this room that's gonna make be the next best film director, the next best music artist, everything. It's somebody in this room. And it's crazy because it's in a couple of years away, or it could be happening this year. Mm-hmm. There's no age limit to greatness. So I just think that if any way, I'm sure if any way we can help, we wouldn't be here if we wouldn't want to help. So it's just like, but help, and remember this, help doesn't mean I'm doing it for you. Yeah. Help means I want to help you understand what you have so you can plant that seed, so you can let it grow. Because once you watch it grow, you're going to do everything to protect it from dying. And that's what I can give.
I echo those same sentiments. Like, just hit us up. I mean, we're live streaming, so I want to put it out. But if you come up to me, like, I'm open. I have lots of connections that are not even relevant to what we're talking about here, but that could plug you in lots of different ways. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, in general, this is like a really open, friendly environment because we have, common ground and space. But going forward, I know when I was young, I used to think like, man, I'm only 16. They're not gonna care. Like, trust me. Like, it is a perk right now that you only have for a window. Like, right now, if you just email someone and say like, yo, I'm 17 and I XYZ, it's already perking the interest of people like us because we see how early that these desires are being, and that's when you need to start them to make them become something great. So like, don't be afraid, like, yo, I don't have the answers, I don't exactly know even what you really want to ask for yet. Like, just start those conversations. And if you want to make it real easy, find a simple way that you can help the people you're trying to reach out to. And I'm not saying that has to be for me or up here, but like, you say, hey, like, I really want to be a mentor, mentored by you, and I'm also going to bring me and 6 of my friends to your opening. You know what I mean? I'm sure she would appreciate that, right? Mm-hmm. And it shows that, like, to the other person, even if it's not something that's really helpful, that you respect their time and their influence and what they can do for you. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, don't be afraid to use, like, I'm young, and we're here to help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you, everyone, for your time. This has been an incredible panel, and yeah, we're pretty, thank you.